Good man.
Hey, this is John. Welcome back to the show. And welcome back to the latest edition of Latter Day Albums. The premise of this series is to talk about Latter Day albums in a band's catalog that don't get enough love or recognition. But before we talk about the album today, let me introduce you to my distinguished guest. You no doubt know him from his appearances on the Contrarians and Grant's Rock Warehouse. You may have also seen my guest and I together on his own YouTube channel called Ryan's Vinyl Destination. And this is his third appearance here on my channel, John the Music Nut. My friend, Ryan Gavalier, welcome back to the show.
Hey guys. John, thank you for having me on again. I'm very excited for this episode tonight. Been looking forward to it a lot. So thank you again.
You're very welcome, and thank you for joining me. The album that we are going to talk about today is Black Sabbath's The Eternal Idol. This was released in 1987. It was released on Warner Brothers Records in the United States and Vertigo Records in Europe. This is the first album to feature Tony Martin on lead vocals. And when this album was first released, it did not sell well at all by Black Sabbath standards. It was their lowest charting album to date at this point. It hit number 168 in the United States, and it hit number 66 in the United Kingdom. The musicians and producers on this album, according to the 2025 reissue of this album, are the incomparable Tony Iommi on guitars and lead guitars, Tony Martin on lead vocals, Jeff Nichols on keyboards, Dave Spitz and Bob Daisley on bass, Bev Bevan on percussion, and the well-traveled and fantastic Eric Singer on drums. 3 different producers are listed on this album in Jeff Glicksman, Vic Coppersmith Heaven, and Chris Sangarides. Now, Ryan, we were talking off air that there are different stories as into who played and who wrote the songs on here and who did the production. Can you fill us in on some of the information that you have?
Yeah, definitely. So in the credits on there, I know you said that the songs were all written by Tony Iommi and Jeff Nichols.
Yeah, in the credits.
Um,
That's true.
yeah, so I know, like, based off documentaries I've watched about this album, and on Wikipedia, also Bob Daisley did like a lot of the lyrics on the album, and then um, Ray Gillen was also very like influential, like melodies and things like that on the album, because he was originally supposed to be the singer that was going to be on it.
Yes.
And then also in terms of the musicians on the album, I know that lists Dave Spitz and Bev Bevan. Dave Spitz played during the tour because Bob Daisley left before they started playing live. And then Bev Bevan, according to Jeff Nichols, did do some percussion as he's credited on there. Um, and then he ended up doing the drums on the tour because Eric Singer had left, which Ray Gillen left as well, and so did a couple of the producers as well. It seemed like it was just a very chaotic, chaotic production of the album. People coming and going, management issues, etc. Um, but it brought Tony Martin, which something interesting about that is that Tony Martin and Ray Gillen were kind of like a toss up of who was going to be the next lead vocalist of the band. And they ended up going with Ray Gillen at first because he was from America, so they didn't have to worry about visas and things like that.
Right.
But obviously, once he left, they called up Tony um, and got him in the band as well.
And Tony didn't write any of the lyrics on here. I'm talking Tony Martin now. although
Mhm.
he would help out with the lyrics on latter day albums with
Yes.
Black Sabbath. So we are going to talk about this album today, what we like about this album, what we may not be so crazy about with this release. So, Ryan, when did you first get familiar with Black Sabbath's music?
Um, I I'd say Black Sabbath themselves probably when I was around 8 years old, but I was a fan of Ozzy Osbourne since I was like a toddler.
Okay.
My dad was a really big fan of him, a really big fan of Black Sabbath, although he was bigger on Ozzy solo. Um, so I was exposed to that music from like the time I was very small. Um, Over the years, I've listened to their entire catalog, um, and I'm a very big fan of it. I really don't think there's a bad Black Sabbath album. There's some that I like more than others, but it's honestly probably one of the best overall catalogs of any band, especially with the amount of albums that they have.
Okay. Well, I was also very young when I started getting into Sabbath. I started buying cassettes around 1983 or 84. And these were my first self-titled debut. Paranoid. I don't guarantee these play anymore. Master Reality,
Wow.
Volume 4 or Vol 4. This album here, which was like a best of at the time, We Sold Our Soul for Rock and Roll. Like all of us had this album.
Hmm.
We swore by it. And it was to the point where back then, because you didn't have the internet back then, you only saw one song from Sabotage on that album. And then it made you think, oh, maybe it's not a good album then. But then later on, when I listened to it, at least, I was like, oh no, this is wicked. The
Hmm.
first 6 albums with Ozzy were wonderful. I bought this on cassette when it came out. I had it for a few years and I gave it away. I didn't buy this again until this 2025 remaster. Now I have all the Black Sabbath albums. Another reason I have all the Black Sabbath albums now is because they came out with this 4 disc box set Anno Domini a couple of years ago. This is remastered versions of albums 2 through 5 with Tony Martin on lead vocals and a completely remixed version of Forbidden, which was totally necessary because that album was not recorded very, very well at all. So, yeah, I've always been a big Black Sabbath fan, never saw them live, only saw Ozzy live once, and that was the Osmosis tour. And that probably
Nice.
was around 1996. So, yeah, I never got a chance to see Black Sabbath live. And it was weird because I remember on this tour, they were playing smaller places. They were playing like 1,000 seaters. I mean, maybe 1,500 seaters. So if I was going to more concerts back then, maybe I could have caught them at like the Staircase in Pittston or a place like that. Like they were playing much smaller venues. So we're going to go into this album. We're going to talk about what we enjoy about the album, what we may not be so crazy about. So Ryan, what for you are the highlights on the Eternal Idol?
My highlights: The Shining, Ancient Warrior, The Eternal Idol. Um, I would say Born to Lose. Um, I mean, if I'm gonna be real, the whole album's highlights for me. But those are probably my favorites. Nightmare is really, really good too. Um, Hard Light to Love. I think yeah, no, it's all highlights for me. I love this album.
For me, this is a return to form for me. I used to really like Seventh Star, and I would rank Seventh Star over this. I think this is a much more cohesive album now. As time has gone on, this album is aged like a fine wine to me.
Hmm.
And the only thing to me that really sounds like dated is Eric Singer's gated drums. They have a very big 80s sound, although his drumming on it is magnificent. That to me, the way they're recorded screams 80s album to me. Everything else about the recording is wonderful. This remaster is wonderful. And that jumped out at me when I first heard the cassette back in 1987. For how much chaos was going on in this band at the time, you wouldn't know it on record because it just sounds great. It sounds like these guys have been playing for years. I really love Jeff Nichols' contributions on this album. I think as time has gone on, we've gotten to know how important he really was to the latter day Black Sabbath. His keyboards never dominated the proceedings, but they added to just the right amount of color. A lot of great intros as well. As far as the songs, yes, I have the same ones as highlights. Although I've always loved Lost Forever as well. In
It's a
fact,
great song.
back in the day, that was my favorite song on the album. But in fairness, as a guy was still listening to heavy metal at that point, I love faster songs now. So, but what I really like on here, the songwriting is very strong. There's a lot of great bridges on here. I think the songs are very well written throughout. Would you
Mhm.
agree with me, Ryan?
Definitely. I think this is, in my opinion, some of the best songwriting the band's ever done. In my opinion, I think that the songs are a really good mix of being like heavy, but also really catchy at the same time.
Mhm.
I feel like none of the songs on here overstay their welcome.
Oh,
I think they do have some really interesting change ups throughout. I think it's some of Tony Iommi's best riffs he's done in a long time up to that point. And I think that, I don't know, I just think that, really great choruses throughout too. I think some really, really catchy choruses, um, which I think would um, have a lot of credit toward Ray Gillen, even though he wasn't on the album too, because he did come up with a lot of the melodies. And like, if you listen to his version of the album, you can see that. Absolutely.
you were talking about riffs. One riff on here that I think is absolutely wicked is Hard Life to Love.
It's a great riff.
Oh my God. This riff works as the hook on here. And this riff continues throughout the song. Like there's like a call and response between Tony Martin's vocal and the riff. But the riff is heavy. It's a little faster riff that you'd hear from the Ozzy Sabbath. It's still very, very wicked. And I like how in the bridge it slows down a little bit and then it picks up the pace again. This is
Yeah.
probably the most immediate song on the album, but the
Hmm.
riff is absolutely fantastic.
Definitely.
Another great song on here. You were talking about the great choruses, The Shining, of course.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic.
Honestly, The Shining for me, that's probably my number five favorite Black Sabbath opening track.
That's that's saying a lot because they have so many awesome opening tracks in their catalog, and it doesn't matter who was singing.
I agree.
That's high praise. What I really like about The Shining, you got some nice little fretless bass in that long intro,
Hmm.
which I wouldn't have picked up on back in the day, but after listening to so much music over the years, I'm like, oh, that's some nice fretless bass on there. The main riff really, really kills on here. And you're talking about the chorus. The chorus is fantastic.
Definitely.
And the
I
group,
guess,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, I guess that song, The Shining, was the only song that Black Sabbath ever played from this album after this tour. They did it
Okay.
on the Forbidden tour. They did The Shining. Tony Martin did some of the songs on the album on his own solo tours, but after the Eternal Idol tour, that was the only song they ever did again, and it wasn't until 1995.
I'm glad that they at least brought it back,
Hmm.
considering that the album didn't really sell very well at the time. It's good that it has endured. And I think as far as the Tony Martin era, yeah, this is considered one of the most outstanding tracks of those
Hmm.
five albums. It's fantastic. I was mentioning Lost Forever before. This is borderline thrash in its execution. I'm talking about the speed. Not so much that the guitars are kind of clean on here, but
Hmm.
with the pace, it is a blistering pace on here and it works very, very well. The solo on here is fantastic. It's driving like you're talking about opening tracks. It drives like Trashed from Born Again, the opening track with Ian Gillan. That's something
Hmm.
that really jumped out on here. And I like the bridge on here which open every line of the lyric starts, "I'm burning with fire." Really, really cool.
Hmm.
Excellent. And another thing I'd say, even though we had three producers on here, the cohesion is here sound wise as well. I don't think
Definitely.
it definitely doesn't slacken. It doesn't sound like it sounds like it all fits together very, very well.
Agreed.
We were talking about Jeff Nichols' contributions on the album. What are some tracks on here that you really think he really shines?
Well, I think The Shining for sure.
Mm,
I think um was it Glory Ride? I think he's on quite a
yes,
bit.
he is.
I mean that's a fantastic song too. I didn't mention it before. Um, I think let's see. I feel like he's on Ancient Warrior quite a bit
Yeah,
too, which
yes,
that might be my third favorite song on the album. I think that song has my favorite riff on the whole album though. The opening riff to that, it's fantastic.
I like the musical bridge. It becomes very Doom.
Oh yeah. No, it's a great riff there too. That song is just absolutely perfect, honestly. It could be my favorite. It's between that, Eternal Idol, and The Shining. Those are my three favorites. And it goes back and forth on which one's my favorite. They're just like top-notch tracks.
Absolutely. And let's talk about that title track, which is definitely the closest thing to early Sabbath.
Hmm.
Very ominous and very, very eerie on here. I think Jeff Nichols' keyboards really add a lot to the proceedings on this one.
Hmm.
As far as the vocals, I think this is where Tony really shines like the sun.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that it's really cool that they were able to like go back to an earlier Sabbath type song, like really do me with his range. Because I mean, I love Ozzy to death, but he didn't have that range with his vocals. So having Tony be able to go up and do those high notes, those screams, go back to like lower notes and stuff, it's just so surreal, honestly. Because I've said it before, and it might be a little bit of a hot take. I wouldn't say he was the best front man in terms of like performances and stuff, but I think Tony Martin was probably the best technical vocalist that the band had. I think he edges out Dio for me even a little bit. Because Dio will be my number two, probably, but yeah.
I had a feeling you were going to go there because I wouldn't argue that at all. Dio was a stronger performer.
Hmm.
He, his voice was what his voice was very distinctive. His voice was more distinctive than Tony, but I think
Hmm.
Tony had, yeah, he had better range.
Yeah. I think that.
mid range very well too.
Yeah, I feel like Tony is like the most effortless vocalist Black Sabbath had. Because I think even if you listen to the Ray Gillen version of the album, I mean, he was a fantastic vocalist too. And I think that he really shined on songs like Born to Lose and Glory Ride and like Hard Life to Love, some of the more like faster, kind of bluesier sounding songs.
Mhm.
But he was a little bit weaker on songs like The Eternal Idol and stuff where he really had to like strain his voice more. Tony never had to strain his voice. He just like
No,
went for those notes, which is something that even Dio, like you hear him strain his voice sometimes on the Black Sabbath albums, especially. I think not as much when he was in like Rainbow and stuff, but he'd already been doing stuff for a little while at that point. Whereas Tony was kind of like a little bit more like fresh meat at this point.
right.
Yeah, he wasn't straining. He just goes into those notes and go back and forth in range with like no effort at all. And it's just really, really amazing. And I think that a song like Eternal Idol, I think it's one of the best vocal performances on any Black Sabbath song, in my opinion.
I wouldn't argue that. Now, I put on here it's my favorite of the Tony Martin era. But yeah, this is one of their most impressive performances as a vocalist, period, in the canon. One thing I
Mhm.
would put Ronnie James Dio over Tony Martin for, when Ronnie sang soft and he didn't,
Oh yeah.
he sounded out angelic. I don't know if Tony Martin ever quite got that, but the mid range and the soaring highs, I probably give the edge to Martin.
Hmm.
As a performer, Ronnie James Dio was a spectacular performer.
No, I agree completely. And I think that that's kind of where I make the distinction as well, because Dio is one of those vocalists who will give you chills.
Yes.
Um, I was just listening to that song Catch the Rainbow the other day from the Rainbow era, and it just his vocals on that were just like making me like emotional. And like even if you think of like on the Black Sabbath era, like that song Over and Over
Mm-hmm.
on Mob Rules, beautiful vocal performance. Whereas I think Tony, it's more like I think he's a little bit more theatrical in some ways.
He is.
And he really like has that power. He just has such a big voice, whereas I think Dio is like he's a very emotional vocalist. And I think it's the faster songs sometimes where Dio strains a bit more, like like Mob Rules or like Turn Up the Night and stuff. Like I think like some of those songs, it's like his vocals are still really good, but like he's definitely straining his voice kind of at times.
Mhm. Yeah, you're mentioning, yeah, Tony Martin would have more power in his voice. Yeah, on
Yeah.
if you go over the canon, all of Ronnie Dio, I mean, you could tell he was really stretching. He never warmed up, from what I understand. He never did any vocal exercises. He would just go out there, and that voice came out of him,
Mhm.
which is magnificent. Scarlet Pimpernel, the acoustic guitar piece. This I really like too. All we have is Tony's wonderful guitar. We got the keys under it, and you hear a little bit of cymbals. This I think works well as an opener to go into Lost Forever. And one thing about Tony that doesn't get enough recognition is he always had these little acoustic guitar pieces, not on every album, but on a lot of the albums.
Mhm.
They really added, I think on Master Reality, for example. Master Reality is a heavy ass album,
Mhm.
but you got those two acoustic pieces, and then you got the very solemn solitude that really break it up. But I think it all fits in, and I think that we have that here in Scarlet Pimpernel as well.
Definitely. No, that's a really beautiful song. I think that I have the tendency with a lot of those shorter like acoustic tracks to just kind of like think of them as like the intro to the next track a lot of the
Yes.
time, which is why I didn't really mention it as a highlight, but it is a really beautiful song. I think it kind of, I feel like if I could compare it to any of his other ones, it would be like something on Master Reality, or maybe like kind of like a fluff from
Oh, from Sabbath, Black Sabbath.
yeah, something in that realm. It's really beautiful for sure, and it's a good intro to Lost Forever.
Yes, and I mentioned that it's a good intro, but it also at 2:25 it would work as well as the song too. Like it's not too short. Like don't start too late, for example.
Mm,
That's really short. That goes right into Symphony of the Universe on Sabotage.
mhm,
So I'm glad that we have that aspect of Tony's playing on this
definitely.
album. Yes, you were talking about. You mentioned Nightmare. Nightmare has this like heavy blues thing going on.
Hmm.
It has that kind of groove going on. Although, what's weird though is you have that opening keyboard part, and that makes it sound more pastoral.
Yeah.
And then so you're expecting some kind of epic, but then it goes into that groove. It goes din 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 din, din, which you're not expecting when you hear that keyboard intro. But it's got a really cool riff on it, and it gets really really evil at the end. That's the only appearance on this album
Hmm.
of Ray Gillen because he does that really nightmarish scream there. That part there. That's Ray.
Yeah, no, that was just right from that original recording. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it was too good for them to get rid of.
Exactly.
It's priceless.
Exactly. Yeah. Because that leads us a great segue into the doomier part of the song
Hmm.
where you have and Tony's really shining on that vocal at the end. Nightmare, it's got me running. I mean, I'm not gonna try to sing it. This range was insane. This is another really, really strong track on here.
Hmm. Absolutely. And it is a very bluesy track. I feel like if there's anything that's like closer to old Sabbath on the album, it would probably be this as well, just because of how bluesy it is.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And we were mentioning Glory Ride before with the nice keyboards under that groove. Eric Singer really shines on here on the drums,
Yeah.
especially during the bridge on here where they change up the tempo and he's really really killing. He's playing like a fast march beat on there and really
Hmm.
picking up the pace before they go back into that main theme.
Yeah. That song is one of my favorite choruses on the album, too. It's
Absolutely.
so catchy, honestly.
Very, very good. So I think we've pretty much touched on everything on this album. You you like the recording too? I mean, my thing is the drums. Outside that, I think the recording's outstanding.
Yeah, I really love the 80s music, so the drums don't really bother me, to be honest. I absolutely love the production on this album. I think I'd say it's up there with like probably like Mob Rules. It's I'd say that and Mob Rules are neck and neck of being the best sounding Black Sabbath albums in my opinion.
Hmm, okay. We have two bonus tracks on here. Some Kind of Woman and Black Moon. This is on the 2025 version. Black Moon would later be on Headless Cross.
Hmm.
With these tracks, Some Kind of Woman does not sound like anything else on the album.
Yeah.
It sounds like Van Halen,
Hmm.
but I like it. And you got a nice call and response during the chorus. Tony's even playing a little bit like Eddie Van Halen on this. It just, yeah, it doesn't, it's an outlier. If you were to put this on the regular album, you'd be like, what the heck is this? It sounds like, I was saying Van Halen, it more sounds like Y&T's The Kid Goes Crazy off of Contagious, which would have came out earlier that year.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And then with Black Moon, we got another slower and heavier shuffle, but this
Hmm.
one has a lot more groove to it. And I can see why they put this out on Headless Cross.
Definitely.
Yes. So, Ryan, how would you rank the Eternal Idol on a scale of 1 to 10?
Obviously, things are always changing as time goes on, but I think right now I'd probably give this album a 10.
Okay.
I really love it, honestly. I think that other than some of my favorite Ozzy albums from Black Sabbath, this might be my favorite Black Sabbath album. I think, like, if I'm honest with myself, I like this more than any of the Dio albums, even though I really love them. Um, and everything in between that, everything after, I think this is best work after the Ozzy era. Probably best after Sabotage, in my opinion.
Hmm. Okay. I would give this an 8.5. I think it's their best since Heaven and Hell. I'd put this over Mob Rules because although the highs are really high on Mob Rules, there's some songs on Mob Rules I'm not too crazy about.
Yeah,
Heaven and Hell, I would put over this because I think the highlights on there are outstanding. And I like every song a lot except for Walk Away, and that one's okay. I
yeah.
definitely like this more than Born Again. Born Again is the most divisive album in the catalog.
I love it, but
I love a
it's
lot of it. You know what I mean? Like, I love Disturbing the Priest and Zero to Hero. And some of the other songs are good, but if you're to go like a latter day, maybe classic in the Sabbath catalog, you can't go wrong with the Eternal Idol. And I think the next album, Headless Cross, I think it gets a little more respect. It's very good. I would give like this the edge over that.
me too.
Yeah, like I would give this the edge over anything on here. Although with these remasters and the remix of Forbidden, I've really gained a new appreciation for those latter day albums. What's your least favorite Black Sabbath album? Let's see if we match.
Mm, that's really hard, actually. So I really do like all the albums. I think the last time I went through all of the albums, Tear ended up being my least favorite, but there's some songs on there that I really, really love. So that could be different if I listen to the whole catalog again.
Mine's 13. That might be the album I don't. That's the only album by them I don't really like. Like Technical Ecstasy, I'm not very high on either, but I think there's a few bangers on it. I just think they sound a little tired. When I listen to 13, it sounds like they're trying to be Sabbath. They're trying to be
Fair.
what they were between 70 and 75. I think a little bit of it works, and plus it's so darn long too. But
Yeah.
that era,
I really did not like 13 for a long time, but in the last couple years it's grown on me. And I could see that for any of the albums that I didn't love before. I think just like for me, when I look at Black Sabbath's catalog, their worst albums are still better than what most people around them were putting out at that time, which is why I think it's such a like amazing catalog. Um, so obviously there's bands that put out less albums that have like more that are like maybe like nines, tens across the board, but like Sabbath was doing albums for like 40 plus years and they yeah, and they just like the whole time were putting out at least good stuff. Some of it's a little bit like not great, but like they never put something out where I'm like, that sucks.
Exactly.
Because even like Seventh Stars, like there's some bangers on that album. I don't love everything on it, but there's some great music on there. And same with Tear. Even though I said that in my last listen through, that was my least favorite. I still like it. I just think that there's some filler on it. Um, but there's some amazing stuff too. Like Anno Mundi is a fantastic track.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, if you talk about Tier, I love the Lawmaker.
Oh yeah.
I love Jerusalem.
It's a good song.
Oh, there's a lot of great stuff. Like feels good to me. That's a bit of an outlier, but I don't dislike it. It's okay. But yeah, there's
Yeah,
yeah, like if you go through every one of these albums, there's bangers on all.
definitely.
So thank you so much for joining us today. What do you think of Black Sabbath's 1987 album, The Eternal Idol? What do you think of Tony Martin's vocal performance on this album, as well as through his 5 album tenure with Black Sabbath? Black Sabbath. What are your favorite songs on this album? What are your favorite albums by Black Sabbath? What's your favorite era of Black Sabbath? A lot of people would say the Ozzy Osbourne era, but I know that the Ronnie James Dio and the Tony Martin era has a lot of fans as well. Please let us know in the comments what you think of Black Sabbath's The Eternal Idol. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me today
Thank
and
you.
for joining me and for bringing up this album that doesn't get enough love or recognition, Black Sabbath, The Eternal Idol.
Hey, it was my pleasure, honestly. I've had so much fun doing this. I feel like ever since I found out about the Tony Martin era of Black Sabbath, I've been a fan. I think all good albums, some great albums. I think he's just a really amazing vocalist that doesn't get enough credit either. Um, and a lot of cool lineups of musicians as well. I mean, they got like Cozy Powell in the band, Eric Singer, Bob Daisley, a lot of like really great musicians, Jeff Nichols. So, no, I'm really glad we got to do this. And um, I appreciate you having me on again.
You're very welcome, Ryan. Thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you all for watching the show today. Do what you love, and we'll talk to you soon.